So I'm here with John Purkey, the author of Paper Cuts, and I discovered him through his The Observer YouTube channel. It's so, for someone who bought "Come as You Are" back when it came out, it was a nice book to obtain. But I'm going to ask him about something. More, I consider the spiritual life more the most essential side of life. So I'm going to ask him of his opinions. So what do you think is the purpose of life?
Purpose of life. I feel that our senses draw in. We're able to recognize information through our senses. So information from whatever you want to think information is, whether it's just, I kind of look at like everything around me as like sense it's coming through my senses. You know what I mean? So it's information in different forms. So to experience that, that's kind of that's one answer.
Well, I remember one of the things that Joseph Campbell, one of the particularly influential people in my I've never met or talked to the guy. I've just watched his stuff on PBS and otherwise. He said people aren't looking for a meaning of life; they're looking for an experience of life, and there's certainly a lot of truth to that. But what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Actually, that goes into context of what I was just saying. It's actually like, it's through information and experience. It's the information that has come out. I kind of look at it like this. Light, in my feeling, has a whole lot of information in it, and that light comes from galaxies away. It comes from our sun, and it bombards us with information, whatever is within that. It's like right in front of us. There's so much we can't see, but when we know it's more than just invisible ether, but I think that there's a lot of information that goes into living things, and they grow into whatever they grow into. It's kind of the unknown. So trying to explain it is almost meaningless because it's so hard to explain. So.
Well, there's sometimes the different interpretation of the same thing that's turns out to be right for several different ways. Like I used to have an analogy based on a tradition of not taking a break when the sun's at the highest from any sort of ritual prayer or anything like that, and basically people would sit around and read and stuff like that. But so I had an analogy that I would share that had several different reasons why people wouldn't do it, and obviously I made the people argue in the story, but they were all right, but they just didn't get that they basically just had faith in the same thing.
Yeah.
When you do the right thing, is it more likely to be out of love of doing good or pleasing God, or personal enjoyment or pleasure, the hope of the results of your deeds, the fear of the consequences of not doing the right, or hate for doing the wrong, or even for those who wouldn't do the same?
Okay, you kind of got cut out. I would say as much as possible in my life, I don't react on motive. I think there's a real an innate just compassion that I think when I if I try to overthink anything, it just gets in the way. So when I do anything in my life, it's more out of just passion or compassion, really. You know, more than ever. That's where I think that's where I come from. I don't know if I answered that in the, there's probably more I could say on that. That's, these are good questions. There's, and I can see already there's not just one easy answer, I mean, there's a whole lot. I could go off for quite a while, something like that.
Well, I think if most people would think they'd get at least, four out of the five as some sort of motivation in some circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it has to do with different times of my life. When I was younger, I think there was a lot more motivation to be able to be able to have my own apartment, or be able to like have just some sanity and just be able to take a deep breath and do. But it was constantly like just having to do crazy stuff, from selling weed to I mean, uh, I think that it was a harder life years ago for me. Now, I've kind of found more like I enjoy what I do, and it's easier to be able to make a living, selling through eBay and selling locally. And anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's definite again, it goes into that's a huge answer. It's like, also I've had a lot of loss in the last 4 years, so it's changed my life dramatically. So just how I look at everything in my life has changed, from like losing a lot of people in my life, including my mom, including best friends, band members, I mean. So anyway, like I said, man, there's a lot to say on something like that. Probably every one of your questions will be. Anyway, yeah.
What do you think happened before birth? If you think that there's anything mystical or spiritual or anything that
Yeah,
went on.
sure. Um, that's been something that's very interesting to me. And since I've never had any specific experiences um, myself, as like talking about past lives when I was younger, or there's only one thing my mom told me, and I tried to remind her about it. Go like, do you remember when you told me that I had told her one time when I was really little, I wish I could go back to the Tower of London, and it made no sense. And when I reminded her about it, she didn't remember me saying it. So I would I think that there's a good possibility where we're able to decide in a sense what form we want to take. And what I mean, based off past experiences. I don't know. It's still, it really goes into a place that's very unknown, and I don't have a lot of very specific feelings on that. You know, I think that I think there's something to it. You know, um, but yeah, I yeah. Anyway,
What do you think will happen to you during and after death? In the same category, not necessarily the method of your dying or that sort of thing, but
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to keep this thing rolling here. Over the last quite a few years, the idea of formless and form have really made sense to me, and that the same energy that we're made of can take different forms, and that information it's like, I'm losing you. Okay, it's kind of like we have a hard drive, that doesn't disappear, so that that hard drive that gathers all that information, through all of our lives that we've ever experienced, still it still is it has a cumulative place, something like that. So we go back there, or like, I like Seth. I mean, if you're interested, if you know who Seth at all, Jane Roberts, do you know who
Yeah,
Seth
well, I've
is?
seen the book. I'm not sure I've ever read that channeled book.
Okay, well, there's something interesting that Jane Roberts would talk about that I've always kind of remembered, that there was like an oversoul. So there would be like for you and I, we might have our own oversouls that actually combine more than one person. So I might, say we might have the same oversoul. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like that's what Seth would talk about. That there's like a combined, you know,
Well,
um,
people would.
like there's just one, not just one soul for me specifically, just me. It could be a combined amount of people, whether it's my mom and family members, or whether it's people that I don't know, I've never met, or so I always thought that idea was pretty interesting.
Well, there's people who believe this. Okay, we have different souls, but there's like an anathema or neshama that is like that's where intuition comes from, because like humans have like one soul, but then we're all individual souls too.
Yeah.
So there's that sort of idea going on. But I think of everything, it makes because that's how life works, is that things are an accumulation of one thing versus the next, and the idea that the afterlife's not really some sort of crystallization of our life in one way or another doesn't. I don't know what else would make sense.
I'm here.
Maybe I express that. Basically, I was agreeing with what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, no, it's, well, again, it's a big concept, and for me, it goes into the realm of the unknown, where the only way I can speak about it is from experiences, or from what, like I've heard enough and I've read enough, and people have repeated the same things, or you know, it just seems to make sense based off where I am in life. Or, I mean, there's so many things that can be that can go into where I am with what the hell I think the answer to that question would be, if that makes any sense. It's yeah, I mean, it's heavy. I think I find that there's connection with people that I've known, and I've found less connection with family members. This is a very interesting thing. So your family if you look at the whole picture, you would think that you should be closest to your family, even in spirit. I mean, I'm not saying, because the fact is most people are not. You know, that's just, it's just is, I just see that and I'm like, it's a, you you usually have less in common with family members, but it seems like it should be just the opposite,
Yeah.
right? But once in a while you do have something in common with a family member. And I
Well,
have that, like, out of many people in my family. There's only two people that I would say that I really have, like close things in common, that could be on the spiritual level too, right? So there's also that. It's like, you know, I've become closer and had more in common with people that I'm not related to in a human form. You know, I always thought that was very interesting, and there's something to that. You know,
well, there's certainly the evolutionary standpoint of looking at that. That's well, so there's a variety, so something survives. So you're not all the same, and you all don't die at the same time, maybe as a result of everybody being the same in the family. Um,
hmm.
but I'm reminded of something. I was basically training to be a Latter Day Saint missionary when I was younger, right? And one of the things they would tell us, is that people would ask us what our favorite book of scripture was, and we were supposed to say, you know, we find it most important to focus on the family was the answer that we were trained to give, and um, although they weren't, their viewpoint of the family isn't perfect, it's certainly better than a lot of them. And I've, following along those lines, I've tried to improve on that. Not that I've necessarily gotten along with family forever. Certainly, certain life decisions or something like this, there's been disagreement, and it's like, well, it's like it didn't really, affect you too much. I mean, I guess, not going to the church, not continuing to go to the church that I was raised in. That, but you know um
Hey, man, same with me. You know what? I was raised Mormon. My very very young age. My mom went away from being Mormon to being a Buddhist. My grandparents stayed very very strict Mormon. Actually, part of my family goes way back. I've never talked about this on my YouTube channel, but I have a book. That's like, it's the Hancock. Hancock is one of my family names, and my family are literally like settlers, for early Mormon settlers in Utah, and that side of my family is like Mormon for a couple hundred years, like really serious Mormons. That's crazy. Yeah, I just thought I'd tell you that.
um what do you believe about deity?
Oh, you mean like God or something like
Yeah,
that?
like God. Well, for some people, God's just a function of worship, but yeah, God, yeah, because
Or
did I lose you?
a Yeah, you did for a second. I guess the context that you're. I mean, I kind of know what you're saying, but
Like what would you mean when you say when you say God? Because people say all sorts of stuff. So what would you mean by that name or word or?
I mean, at this point, it's really like consciousness in a sense. I mean, it's like everything is part of the same source in a sense. So that, I mean, I think like that might be what I would call.
And do you have any favorite attributes of divinity?
Um, like the sun in the sky. I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a good answer for that.
Well, I've recently done a lot of work on my Zoroastrian playlists, and the sun and fire, they didn't worship those things. It was a symbol of,
Right.
God is light and the warmth and what brings the knowledge, because obviously when it's light out, you can learn things that you can't learn in the dark.
Yeah, it's a source of information too. I'm feeling like that might be part of what light is too.
Do you do anything in particular in the name of God?
No, 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 because it's really a very controlled word. It's like it's part of a created duality, in my feeling. Like, I mean, just using even you can't even really have a word for it. It's my feeling for what I look at it is as, you know.
Do you have anything that you wouldn't that you wouldn't do, or you would think would be hard to do in the name of a God?
I think thought is it, the more that a human being can stay away from the um all of the problems that thought can create in life. The more we can be intuitive and follow that natural, um it's like involuntary place in life that things that's when synchronicities start to happen. That's when things become more natural.
How much time do you think could be devoted to spiritual or religious practice on a weekly basis?
100%. I mean, in a sense, that's what life is.
So that
I
obviously,
mean, really.
but yeah, um, you know, in Islam, there's a saying that anything worth doing is worth doing in the name of God, basically.
Yeah, all the time, because again, it falls out. It's like being stuck in the false consumer role, that actor role that we are in society, is stepping out of the real, the real spiritual being who we are. In a sense, we're having to step into another role just to be able to get by. I mean, to, a portion. That makes sense.
Well, I remember I interpreted a story once that the story basically was around the idea of what you'd call of what some people will call the chariot card, and it's basically, you know, getting to the real you, because we certainly have to operate our roles and our bodies and our thoughts and all that sort of stuff, but there's a spirit soul behind that, and you have to sort of, you know, peel back the layers to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a hard thing for people sometimes, because they,
Sure.
some people it's either they refuse to deal with things, or it's they want to detach and go into some escapism where um, like people dying and playing video games nowadays. The video games it's easier to do because the video games and the VR is getting better and
Oh,
better, and you know with the mist thing on your head, you forget to go to the bathroom and forget to eat. You're just,
yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
now the more the more interesting side of the questions, of course, I would presume they're going to be the have you had a spiritual experience?
Yeah, in a sense, I think so. I actually had one pretty recently, which was pretty life changing. Oh, I lost you. I'm having to move my phone around trying to make sure it stays on. Anyway, let's see if I can keep this on here. Well, hold on here. That's all right. Well, we'll try that. I'll just leave it in one place and hopefully it stays on. I had a friend pass away in January, like January 23rd of this year. And he was a musician friend that I've known for like 30, 35. That's something like 35 years, or maybe not quite that long, but maybe 32 years, whatever. Anyway, the literally the night that he passed away, at night, it might have been almost the exact time from what I found out when he passed away. Myself and girlfriend, we were sitting watching a movie, talking, you know, and I had this thing happen where I stopped and I was like, I don't have any fear anymore. That's it. I remember the exact moment. I'm like, I have no fear. It's over. You know, I mean, literally, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm not afraid of security. I'm not afraid of any of that shit. You know, I don't want to die, but I don't, you know. And then that morning, I get the call, and I'm like, Trevor passed away, and you know, I don't know if it had anything to do with him or not, but it was a spiritual awakening. You know, it really was. I even got up, like I fell asleep that night, and I got up and wrote this thing too. So it was like something that I wrote. But yeah. So that was, you know, I've had a few like spiritual awakenings like that were like they felt like they kind of came out of nowhere. You know. Are you there still? Are you still there? Did you get that?
Last thing I heard was out of nowhere.
Yeah, you know, I'm basically saying I've had a few spiritual awakenings that kind of came out of nowhere, you know, that were life changing and profound in a sense. I feel that I changed dramatically, though people around me may have not seen, you know, too much of a change or whatever. But how I look at life, how, you know, different things have changed. So anyway, yeah.
Well, I firmly believe that we get the experiences and opportunities that we can make the right decisions with, or that we need, or you know, that's that sort of thing. But you know, that you remind me of how when my grandfather that I was closest to, I mean, you know, because I've spent the time, and you know, some of the skills that I have because he was an athletics director kind of, you know, came from there, and some of the drive to, you know, play hard, I guess is the term. What, you know, when he died, I just woke up pretty much like the minute they said he died, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I woke up at such and such time, in the middle of the night. There was like nothing going on, and it's like, you know, that's when my grandfather died.
Wow. Yeah.
But and I've had, you know, and someone else every time they get like, you know, and there's someone that like every time they get caught by the police, I know.
Wow.
You know, I know before it show. I know before it show. You know, before it shows up in the thing. And I also tend to know when they've you know, when they've OD'd. But I don't. You know, I've hoped that's just not worried me and actually done some good. I mean, no, you know, that sort of sense. But I don't know. I've just been connected to that person in that regard. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but some things just, you know, you're not you know, one's not path working. You're trying to have a certain experience. It just you know, things just happen living your life.
Well, that's like what I was talking about, kind of like the over soul thing. But I mean, I know that's just an idea, but my connection to certain musicians that I've known were so close, you know, like Trevor was one of those people. Like our whole life, we had similar missions in life in so many ways, you know, and just it was just so we were so similar in a lot of ways when it comes to that, and I, I don't know. It didn't really, it was very strange, but it didn't really surprise me. When I look at the whole thing, it makes sense, because there was that connection.
So
So,
what would you define uh, how would you define punk in spiritual terms, or how would you see that as being
I
expressed versus others?
you okay, you cut off. So did you say it again?
How would you define or express punk in spiritual terms?
Well, um, I think it's just it's a very raw and energy. I've been asked how to define punk before, and now I think it's different, that I can't really define it, because it really is depending on the person. It can be a very political thing to some people. It can be, for me, it it's expression. It's raw. It's a raw energy and expression for sure. Um, yeah, and also I feel that it's a really great way to share real and insight and ideas with people. Like a band like Crass. If you're not familiar with Crass, that's a band. Are you familiar with Crass at all?
A lot of things leave me, but that sounds familiar somehow.
Yeah.
I'm
If you want,
ignoring through the volume of music which I used to.
yeah, watch there's a Crass documentary. So Crass, and it's a documentary, and one of the members of the band was had really incredible insight into life and how he looked at life, and it was and like the political state. But he also looked at it like, what you could do is to be more self-reliant, in all places. Like, be more self-reliant, like grow your own food, like support your friends, like have people camp out on your property, just like have kind of a commune feel, I mean, like work together. So it's um that punk rock ethic, I think is really important, and it's always stayed. It's always the DIY. You there? I'm losing you again.
Yeah.
Are you there? Okay, like the DIY, do it yourself. So that's one of the earliest things I remember from, doing recordings and bands from 1982, really, when the first time I had a band. Serious band 83, but it was do it yourself. So in a sense, I think that is kind of spiritual. I mean, being able to express yourself and live that way.
Well, one of the things that draws me to that style is it kind of makes me think of the shamanistic sort of thing. It's like you do your thing to have the experience, and then what words come out. It's like I used to take trips to Mount St. Helens and hang out in the caves there, and there was this guy,
Oh,
he
cool.
played the flute, and maybe a drum would be brought along for someone else, or but I just more or less randomly, at least for some of what went on down there, is I just break into some sort of song or poem or something, and however long things lasted. And I'm not the best skilled in terms of playing musical instruments, but I can kind of get some sort of tune and try to feel something, and then
Sure.
set it aside. But I'm not the most coordinated individuals, so that's part of. But um, but yeah, sometimes I take out one musical instrument or another and try to play something. I kind of forgot the chords on the guitar. Spent all that
Make
time
your
learning it,
own.
and kind of,
I mean, make up your own chords. It's all right.
well, that's actually what I do. I kind of put it, pick it up and try to just figure out how to have some sort of melody or some sort of something going on. It was an interesting thing if you've seen the Dave the interview of Dave Grohl where he basically said that he plays a guitar like he plays drums.
Oh, I lost you. Yeah, I lost you there for a second. You said the interview with Dave Grohl, and then you cut out.
He was basically saying that he didn't that he listening to records and banging around on his bed is how he learned how to play drums, and he used that sort of style to learn how to play guitar. As he learned a couple chords and then just sort of thought as the for the most part of the strings in the same way he thought of as the drums.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I haven't really thought of that, but the interview the person interviewing seemed to get that pretty much immediately. It's like, oh, that's why your style is different, because so variety is you've obviously had dreams. So would you what sort of variety of dreams do you say you would have had?
Most often, I feel I have dreams that have to do. I feel like I have dreams that have to do with. A lot of the times I'm not living very stable. It's always like I'm back in about 1986, where or whatever, when I first moved out. So like around 87, 88, I'm like living in a house with a bunch of people, maybe in a closet, and everything's kind of hard. Like things are harder. Always in my dreams, everything's like, it's life is like more on the edge, and it feels like there's more weird shit going on, like weird shit going on, and it's not always, but yeah. So unfortunately, like my dreams, they're not really bad dreams. It's just kind of like, it kind of helps me to wake up and go like, oh, thank God that wasn't real, kind of thing. Thank God I'm not doing that anymore.
I've looked at some books and heard some talks and stuff like this, and you're sometimes you're like, you're hearing the person talk and you don't even know until you've heard the whole thing, and maybe not even that whole thing. You have to hear the whole talk in general to figure out which ones were dreams and which ones happen in waking life. And sometimes it becomes obvious because it's like, well, I was on a beach and all the sand was blue and the sky was green or something. So but other than that, but I do think there's a reality to both the conscious states and unconscious states.
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe people that have a really shitty time in their life, and maybe they have really beautiful dreams to kind of help them, like, and then, like I really, ultimately this point in my life, I enjoy my life. I think, things are all right. How I see everything, the people around me, I really love, I think that I've learned a lot. I'm not a happy person, particularly, but I understand why. I make a living, so I mean, ultimately, like maybe my dreams are just confirming, like, yeah, just you're doing okay. It's like what I was saying. I have dreams of having more hard times, So when I wake up, I'm like, thank God that's not happening.
Have you had deja vu?
Oh yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. But it's always, it's just like kind of normal deja vu, where there's not anything very significant. It's more just like, whoa, oh, deja vu, I mean, just kind of that, like you feel like it happened before. And I've been really getting into Philip K. Dick a lot. And I don't know if you've read Philip K. Dick. Have you?
I can't say that I'm familiar.
Ah, you might really like Philip K. Dick. I don't obviously don't know you very well, but I obviously don't know you, but just by listening to you talk on your videos and hearing your, the questions, this book right here, it's called the Exegesis of Philip K. Dick. Can you read that? All right.
Yeah, I can read that.
Okay, so Philip K. Dick was a science fiction writer, and he basically did like Blade Runner. He did a bunch of film. He did a bunch of books that turned into films too. But he wrote all kinds of, and that's just letters. That's just like letters to some friends about just like what we're talking about. He would have these crazy spiritual experiences that are really intense, man. And they are like some of the most intense stuff I've ever read. I mean, this guy's like phenomenal what he has experienced, But what did you ask me right before I brought up Philip K. Dick? Do you remember?
Have you had deja vu? And one of the things.
Oh yeah,
I have a theory about deja vu.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Is that he goes into detail about like where he thinks, say when you have a premonition, when something, you have a dream or you have a feeling something's going to happen, then it happens, like that. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, he explains there's actually a name for it, and I can't think of it, but it's this like
Cognition?
huh?
Precognition?
No, it's like something in space that sends you. It's faster than the speed of light. It travels faster than the speed of light, sends you this information before it happens. And he talks about this. It's crazy. It's awesome stuff. Anyway.
Well, I believe in a three source of dream theory. Of course, your typical.
Damn it! I lost you
again. Most people, if they remember any dream whatsoever, it's just their brain processing their waking life. There's no spiritual per se direct influence, either from the good side or the bad side. But I definitely believe that people still have influences from those three, and that's part of where I think deja vu comes from, because we're naturally thinking of all this stuff that could happen, and and sometimes you figure out answers to things that you can't figure out when you're awake, but you remember the dream and then you bring it out. And deja vu, I think it's part of that. You don't quite remember it, but you remember it on some level. And when your dream comes true, but you don't quite remember the dream, I think that's where deja vu comes from.
Interesting. Yeah.
Have you ever had what they call a near-death experience?
No, I have not.
Other sort of out of body?
The only near-death experience I've had, which wasn't part of me getting injured, but it was sure weird. I can tell you about it. I was camping with my ex-wife. We were camping sleeping in a tent. Okay, in the middle of the night, we hear like literally what sounds like fireworks, and it's this huge branch. I mean, I'm talking like a 30-foot long branch. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, like a 30-foot long branch. I have some pictures of it. You can see how long it was. Anyway, this branch falls, and the end that breaks off the tree hits the tent. But it hits the tent without even tearing a hole in it. And it rubs my toe. My toe is literally at that edge of the tent. We feel this we hear this like bam crash. I feel this touch my toe. We go out and there's a 30-foot long branch, dude, that that didn't even rip a hole in the tent, and it rubbed against the side of the tent, and I felt it on my foot. It was the weirdest thing ever, man. And it was like a near-death experience without getting injured. It really
I've had a few experiences where
was.
I felt like weird, not man. Keeping to my schedule or routine, and it turns out twice I would have been hit by a car. You know,
wow.
Cars going down the sidewalk, and it's like minutes worth walking. You know, I would have been hit by that thing.
Oh man, that's happened to me too. Absolutely.
And once I'm like right in the middle of where my path was. I'm like, and then crackle, crash. And I'm like, I don't run out of the way of things very easily. And that wouldn't have been the first thing I would have thought. So it's not, yeah.
Was it? Again?
A tree broke an old tree that we were, that needed to be cut down. Down and it fell on its own and right across where I was planning to walk.
Whoa.
And just you know, just a minute delay, or you know, can't say it would have been the exact second it came down, but you know, it's pretty close.
Yeah, dude, you see, you know those video clips of like when cars go busting into like a storefront, and there's always like somebody just jumping out of the way, and they're like in perfect condition. You know what I mean? I see those so much, you know, and you know, like, oh, this car burst into the front of this store, and you see this guy like jump back, and he's like, he just barely makes it. He's fine, you know, over and over again. It's crazy. Anyway,
have you had what some would consider a past life recall or memory of any sort?
Yeah. Stuff that not very, you know, it's more like certain places, you know, that I know that I have to go, or I have to go back to, you know, and I don't really know why. So, you know, maybe something like that. So yeah, I mean, in a way, but not like really in detail.
Well, I've in some ways have left the possibility open, but it's like whenever it's came up in a dream or something, it was always, you know, you've never been incarnated, and you're never going to be incarnated. You're not going to be physically incarnated again. That sort of thing has been like a message a few different times, and it was like, well, I wasn't even looking for that answer, but for some reason that's came to me a few times.
Huh.
But have you ever had an awareness of an inner guide?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it's mom was very much the instigator on that one. You know, she talk about guides and so, you know, I mean, there's times I've actually more than ever I felt like she might be my guide now, you know, or I have friends that have passed away. There's just little things like little synchronicities or things that'll happen, and I think of people that have passed away, and I feel like they're around. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that's happened in the last few years specifically.
So have you had any intuition?
Yeah, it's hard to gain control of. So you really know, like, you know, I mean, intuition is one of those things that's just kind of like floating. It's kind of floating, and it's almost like you grab, you kind of get into it at times, but it's hard to be there all the time. So it's hard to explain.
So have you encountered a spiritual
But
being other than
the
yourself?
what I do want to say about intuition is that one thing that I do know for sure is the more that you can stay in the moment, the more you stay out of the thought process, the more you will be in that place of intuition, and things will happen like synchronicities. I know that for a fact in my life.
Yeah, I've definitely, it's like people and their various forms of visualize. Uh, if you set up this projection, well, you can't, maybe the projection, maybe something happens with it, but it's not quite like, uh, just being open for experience and giving a space for an experience. If you're directing an experience, it tends not to be as vivid or useful as,
Oh yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's like if you watch a show and you think about the show and you think about the show, and then, what the thoughts that respond to itself are not so much as if you just sit down and have the experience. Like, there's this overemphasis for, in the religious sphere of memorization of scripture rather than just, the 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 practice and the experiencing of scripture, and as part of one's, just living it out in your life and going over it. It's like memorize the thing is the main focus. And I think that, having a balance of a few, yes, but I think just the focus on memorization kind of cuts off a lot of experience that I think people would have.
Mm-hmm.
So what? Have you encountered a spiritual being outside yourself, other than something you would consider like human, or like a departed dog or cat or something?
Yeah, kind of. I was doing a Ouija board with a girlfriend in like 1992-ish. Did you see that video? I did a video on my YouTube page early on. You'd probably be anyway. So, this this is pretty weird. Okay, so this thing, the Ouija board was telling us that it wanted to enter my girlfriend's body, and we didn't really believe it, but she was like, yeah, okay, whatever, and then it said, okay, it'll do it for exactly 1 minute in 20 seconds. Just keep your hands on the board or whatever. And then all of a sudden she goes away from the board. She has her eyes closed, and she's like rubbing her hair and like just starts like rubbing her whole body, right? For like about exactly a minute. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, Carrie? Carrie? She's not answering. She comes to and she starts bawling, totally crying. And all that she can say is, I don't know what happened. It just felt like pins and needles, in my body. And then she was sick for like 2.5 weeks. So that's like, I felt like something happened there, man. I don't know. I think something entered her body.
Well, certainly people through such things would open themselves up to things, and
Yeah.
sometimes what comes in is not necessarily the influence you want in, and then it can take a while to deal with that.
Yeah. I've never had anything like that though, at all. Yeah. But
Well,
when it
I've witnessed somebody
comes
that,
to like, I mean, I've never seen anything, but I've had things happen, like, where some weird things happen with ghosts or whatever. So yeah, kind of like that. So
Have you witnessed a miracle?
um I don't know. I think there'd probably be a few times in my life that I could kind of say something like that. I had to save a friend's life doing the Heimlich maneuver one time. So that was kind of a miracle because he literally he I wasn't going to come over and have steak with him. We were going to barbecue and he was like, "Come over. Let's have barbecue steak." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't yeah, man, no." And he was like, "Come on, come over." And I would have been the only person over there. So if I wasn't over there, he would have choked on steak. I mean, he literally was like turning blue, and I had to give him the Heimlich, and it saved his life. So in a way, it was kind of like I kind of look at that like a little. I kind of look at that like a miracle a little bit. I think there's been other times I can't think of right offhand, but that's an interesting question. I feel like there's some things in life that yeah, you know, maybe not like a big spiritual miracle like you know like a you know like a religious type miracle, but things like I just explained to you where it was pretty intense.
Uh, have you experienced prophecy?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in a sense, you know, I mean, for sure with Kurt, you know, I think that something contacted me, and I don't know what the hell it was, and let me know that Kurt was going to be murdered, and I needed to go see him. You know, I mean, is that that's kind of like prophecy, you know, in a sense, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a type of it.
Life, yeah, stuff. Like I've had dreams that had to do with death. Like I did a video about that too. So I've had that happen a few times in my life. I've had that happen a few times where somebody passed away the literally the next day after I had a really bizarre dream having to do with a death of a musician, and sometimes the same instrument or just like weird, like somebody else that I knew. It just too far out to be just a coincidence or anything, you know. Happened a few times.
Do you as far as these metaphysical things, whether they be ghosts or otherwise, do you have a relationship with them, or are they just were they just
No.
presences?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, nothing like that. It
Um,
was specific to the house or the time, you know.
you mentioned synchronicity tend to explain the amazing sense of coincidences that you might have experienced.
You know, there's a lot there. I think more than ever I'm looking at it to be something that is significant in life now. I can look back in my life and in the past, and I can see synchronicities that have happened in the past, you know, surrounding people, surrounding a lot of things. So yeah, I mean, there's not really anything specific I want to get into. It's just I can just say that I just know that it exists, and it continues. You know, from time to time, it's very right in my face. You know, not like every day, but it's more if I go out and do stuff a lot, things happen. Like I'll have some synchronicities. My 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 phone's about dead. I probably got another couple minutes.
Okay. So have you ever heard a particularly unusual sight or well, any particular unusual sound or sight or feeling?
Yeah. I, actually, did you watch? Have you watched my videos recently
I've
at all? Any of
clicked
them?
on I've clicked on some. I've
Okay, so there, so we just went to this place called Fort Worden, myself and a friend, and it's these old military bunkers. I don't know if you know, but if you look at my videos, watch exploring our artillery hill or whatever. It's just a few videos ago, but like within a few minutes of the video, we walk down these stairs, and I type it. I actually, when I listen to it, I typed it on the video, so when you're watching it, you'll hear this weird voice, and it's like this. It goes, it's really weird, and I thought it might have been behind me, like my friend made the noise, but it wasn't her. You know, she's heard, she's listened to it. She doesn't make that noise. It was just very weird. But stuff like, yeah, I've heard stuff a few times, you know. Yeah.
So you said you got a couple minutes, so I'll close in a fashion. I have if you're aware of the idea of what's the human being is a city of nine gates. So for the past couple years, I've been giving out names of nine vibrations, and the last part of it, the last part of it is the date, because Ev would mean 17, and starting with the crescent moon sighting, it's the 17th of the lunar month, and the rest would be, basically your name in this Vmmh shamanistic language that I've been getting. So if one would allow me to share that a few times. Kolkam Samip Vamle Evet Fuwa Kolkam Samip Vamle Evet Fuwa Kolkam Samip Vamle Evet Fuwa. So that is my dignity for you.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks. So you still there? Okay. Yeah. You know, some synchronicity was definitely you coming up with the exact time that I was born. I thought that was kind of interesting synchronicity, because it was so close to right after I mean, it wasn't like a day after where somebody guessed. You guessed within a minute. So that was pretty weird.
Yeah, well, it's the first time I've ever I've ever got anything as a result, and
wow, yeah. So there's something to that. You know, I don't know exactly, but maybe that's why we're doing this. That's we're doing this interview, and in the long run, maybe some things I'm saying on here, some things you're saying, will affect somebody that needs to be. You know what I mean? Like that's how things work. So. Is this is being recorded, right? I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. I thought.
Oh yeah. Is it going to be on your? I was pretty sure it was being recorded. I thought I'd just make sure.
Yeah. I told you right before we went live.
Yeah. No worries. I just wanted to be able to watch it.
Okay. Because yeah. Well, it looks like on my end the signal problems weren't my fault this time. Well, it's not my fault either, but but I guess I'll let you go with
where can I watch it and share it if I want?
It's on I'm probably not going to do another video for another few days, so it's the last video. Look at what time it is now, and it'll be that video.
It'll be on your channel?
Yeah, I know I can put out a lot, particularly when I'm doing a poem series.
Okay.
I found a file with 25 poems. I'm going to make 25 videos. That won't happen till at least the weekend.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm going to watch it back and I'll decide it how I want to share it, or if I want to share it just privately with friends, or if I want to share it on my channel, I might do that. We'll just kind of see. Or I won't actually upload it, of course, but I would talk about it and I just put a link and people can watch it, you know?
Yeah, I'm about to get. I just found out I'm about to get published for the first time myself. Not a full book, but I wrote an article of uh, debunking some conspiracies by some liars about the Georgia Guidestones held by people like Mark Dice and Alex Jones. So I've proved them wrong with what they say. Oh, we have this expensive book, and I read the there's a library that has the book. I visited the library. I visited the site. I translated the stuff on it. These people, if they've seen the book, they know they're not telling the truth. So I thought it was important to get that out. And there's
well, that's good, man. Stick with that. Stick with the truth on stuff like that. Well, I think I'm gonna lose you. So
yeah.
Look like my phone's going out.
Okay. Well.
All right, Jaffer, is that Jaffer?
Yeah, Jafar. Yeah.
All right. Well, you take care, man. Thanks. Yeah. It's good to talk to you.
It was good as well.
All right.